Shall we call the meeting to order at 7:02?
Yes. Call to order.
Public comment, and actually, Uma, I'm going to put you on the spot because
No, Myra, we have to take attendance.
Oh,
I just learned that you have to know who's on the call verbally.
so I need to read people's names.
People have to, or yeah, either say their name and they verbally, or you say that who's here.
Like if I say Dan and Dan Noren and he doesn't respond, that means he's not here.
I don't know.
I'm here.
All right. So in attendance, we have Dan Noren,
Yep.
Myra Sessions, Julie Smith Galvin, Tom Betcher, Melissa Houston, Ann Wyatt sitting in for Joe Conway. Joe Conway is absent. Sean Cash, Robin Greenberg.
Yep.
Absent tonight is Susie Bear, Mary Hajar, and Rob Darnell that I know of. I think that's everyone else. That is everyone. As well as Addie also told me she has a conflict. I don't know if Sophie or Nick are able to join tonight. And
Thanks.
Uma is here, of course, as well.
Yep.
I want to start us off with public comment, and also Uma, I would like to, if it's okay with everyone, incorporate you in public comment if there's anything that you want to contribute, because I know you might not be on the call when we get to the student rep. So is there anyone else from the public that would like to chime in on what we're talking about? And I don't know if I'm allowed to really do this, but I wanted to welcome, I know we have some new members of the public who are joining us. So welcome to the Environmental Sustainability Committee. If you have any comments or thoughts or opinions or anything really that you'd like to chime in, now is the time. Although we tend to be pretty informal as we go along.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Calais, 25 Sylvan Avenue, to be formal.
Former member of the ESC.
Former member of the ESC, joining tonight as a board member for WMGLD and a member of the public as well. I'm just here, I hear there's a solar and EV ready agenda item tonight, and I'm here to just provide support during that agenda item if you would like me to. So excited to join you. Thank you.
Great, thanks for coming.
Am I supposed to introduce myself as a
You
new
are supposed to
face here?
introduce yourself and
Sure.
give your address.
Okay, sure. I'm Tiana Veldwish at 28 West Water Street in Wakefield. I am a member of the public. I have actually applied to join the committee in this upcoming set of joinings. So I'm just interested to hear what's going on and what everyone's up to. I'm probably going to be a little bit off video though, because my 3.5-year-old is still roaming about doing bath time and bedtime. So pardon the 3.5-year-old interruptions.
We can relate to that. And I actually meant to say, to apologize in advance if I have also some young Wakefieldians of not voting age who might pop over my shoulder, since I am functioning as a single parent this evening. So they should be good, but they might appear. All right, I'll pull up the agenda and we'll get going.
I can go, sorry.
Great, yes, of course.
I'm Uma Gerwak and I'm liaison from the Youth Council and I live at 17 Robert Street, Wakefield. I don't really have much to say, but just a reminder that if you need the Youth Council for any type of help or like outreach or anything like that, we'd totally be willing. We're sort of like in between projects and like completing some. So if you need if you like have anything we can help with, you can tell me, I guess.
Uma, I'll follow up with you if you're not on the call when we get to this agenda item, because we are thinking about a public event in May, sort of connected to Earth Day, although I know we missed the time, and so we would love your thoughts. I'm not as organized as I would like to be on that particular agenda item, but I think it could be a real opportunity, and it'll be fun, and we were thinking about connecting cleanup with sort of recycling and this idea of a big purge that we had several years ago, in connection with some of our state reps leading an effort.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure the youth council would be like psyched to get involved in an Earth Day thing. I think we could get like a lot of Wakefield youth into that type of stuff.
Great.
Well, I don't think I've introduced myself before. I'm Jessica Butler, and I live at 852 Main Street. And I've lived here for, I think it's going to be 5 years this year. And I guess I started joining, wanting to know what's going on in terms of sustainability in this case. Yeah. So,
Great, welcome. Welcome, Shane. I don't want to put you on the spot. We're in public comment if there's anything that you want to chime in on.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cheyenne. I'm at Two Vale here in Wakefield. Heavily been, of course, involved in the food rescue with the schools and hopefully the community at some point. No, I'm just here to kind of, listen to what you guys have going on, really passionate about what you guys do. And that's about it for now.
Great, welcome. All right, well, I think it's going to be a really interesting and fun discussion today, and I'm really excited, especially with what Tom and Jen have been working hard on a topic that seems very relevant to a lot of the priorities we've been talking about.
And Julie.
And Julie. I don't mean to leave you out, Julie. I feel like that's just implied.
No, it's fine. I'm just matchmaking. I'm not really doing the work.
All right, approval of minutes. Robin sent out minutes from our last meeting on January 13th. Is there any feedback to Robin? Did you receive any edits, Robin? Are we good?
Our computer is going crazy.
Oh,
You want to come back in, Robin? Yeah, I think we need to wait for her because she's taking minutes. Maybe while she's doing that, Myra, we can just quickly introduce ourselves. There's so many new people on.
I love that idea, Julie. Would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Julie Smith-Galvin. I'm the town council representative on the Environmental Sustainability Committee. And I'm super proud of this committee.
I'll go. I'm Myra Sessions. I'm currently the chair of ESC, and I'm one of the community representatives. So I'm one of the original community representatives. So I'm in year 3. Dan?
Yeah, I'm Dan Noren, and one of the board members, kind of a newbie, still trying to come up to speed, but getting to understand what's going on here, and it's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Melissa?
Hi, I'm Melissa Usen. I've been on the committee for a little under a year. I've been working on different waste reduction initiatives in the town, the styrofoam ban, working with the schools to get recycling and composting going.
Anne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Ann Waite. I work for the Department of Public Works. I'm filling in for Joe tonight because I believe he's at a permanent building committee meeting.
And Anne, I apologize for mispronouncing your name earlier.
We're all good, all good.
Uma, would you like to introduce yourself again, or did you say what you had to say?
I can. I'm Uma Gerwek. I'm a voting member on the Youth Council, and I think this is my second year as liaison to the ESC.
And Sean?
Hi, I'm Sean Cash. I joined the committee as a community representative last year, and I'm an economist and faculty member at Tufts University who works on issues of food and environment in my day job.
Tom?
Hi, Tom Betcher. I'm one of the Gas and Light Commissioners and liaison to the ESC board. I've been in this position for a year and a half as liaison.
And Robin?
Robin Greenberg. Sorry about that. I've never had the mute button get stuck and it was flickering and I didn't know how to undo it. I am one of the original members of the committee, so 3 years.
And it'll become clear when we get to talking about the school buildings, but Robin is an architect. And so really sort of comes into her own in that space.
Yeah, just continuing my day job.
Unfortunately, maybe for you.
So
we have 3 other members of our committee, I think we said, who aren't here tonight, including the liaison from the school committee.
So, oh wait, so now to the meeting minutes, I did receive
Yeah,
comments.
we were
Yeah.
just introducing ourselves while we were waiting for you. Since you're also the secretary, we can't do anything without you.
So yes, I did get some comments, but they weren't, they were edits and spellings. I'm sorry again, Melissa. I'm not sure what I keep doing of spelling your name wrong. So, and then I just realized that I wrote the date as 2023. So I guess I decided that 2022 was done. So I would like to motion that with these edits that aren't in content, but just typos, that the minutes be accepted.
I make
We
a
need a
motion to accept
second.
the minutes. Or you accept, I guess I can second. You made the motion, I can second.
All right, roll call. Julie?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right. That was the first introduction to procedure. So I wanted to circle back in this meeting there's been a lot happening with our school buildings. We know the VOC was approved, which I think is a great step toward getting a really much improved building in our community. And that there's also been steps on the high school building. And I know that there was a lot of effort amongst several committee members around making sure that we get the best possible design at every stage. And so I just put it on here to say, are there follow-up steps? How are we thinking about next steps with the VOC, trying to get some improvements in design now that it is moving forward? And then also the next steps with the high school building.
I guess I'll share with the VOC, the Northeast Metro, that there are a few people both in Wakefield, Melrose, Winchester, and other communities that are part of the vocational region are becoming advocates for some efforts to go to not use fossil fuels, gas in their heating, and to exceed the minimums of sustainability requirements. So some of us are talking tomorrow. So not as members of this committee, but just as citizens to determine the next step, because I actually don't know what the folks' thoughts were. Is that a good summary, Julie?
Yes, I think we were planning on just kind of making sure the vote went through and then making plans. So I don't think anybody really knows what's on the agenda for tomorrow. It's kind of being spearheaded by the sustainability coordinator in Melrose. So, and it really, I mean, it gives a nod to Tom and Jen for the letter that they helped put together with the light department, asking the VOC to not use natural gas for heating there. And we talked about this last meeting. Do we finish that letter to get in?
I don't know. I issued some suggestions on edits. I don't know, as not the author. I didn't know if it actually got done.
Dan sent me the letter today, and about whether or not it has to be approved. I said the ESC, I think it's good to go. We don't need to vote on it again since we sort of, authorized last time. So it
So
may
yeah,
have
we
been
can get
been
that
stuck
out and
with
we can
me
use
for
that
too
as a
long.
baseline for these meetings as well too.
Sorry?
I said we can probably get that out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, Myra, I don't know if you want to put your signature on the letter as well. There's a space for that. Robin, I did include all of your edits and revisions, and also made the letter to the style requirements of the town of Wakefield. So it's ready to go.
Great. Okay. I will follow up with you, Dan, and sign. I can do an e-signature, or I can just sign it
Okay.
and get that to you. Do we have a contact person to send it to, or do we need that?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, so I have the contact to send it to, as well as in the footnotes. There's a bunch of other, state representatives and stuff like that that are addressed into the letter. They were addressed into the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light letter, and I just copied that. So yeah, there's a bunch of people that need to be forwarded to. I just need to get, either mailing addresses or email addresses for them.
Great. Would we also like to send it as an open letter to the item?
If that's fine.
I would put the big yes
the item.
from me.
What was that, Tom?
I would agree. We should do that as well as the patch.
And have Jen put it up on our website too, and make sure it goes into the minutes.
Yeah, who does the website?
Jennifer McDonald.
Oh, she does? Okay.
Yeah, so we have a page and we can put really kind of anything we want, tips or actions. There's a left-hand column.
Yeah, okay. So I'll follow up on that. Tom, what was that other one that you talked about?
The Wakefield patch.
Have
Yeah,
Jen, have
okay,
Jen,
right.
Dan, instead of you doing all that, ask Jennifer McDonald, when you send it to her for the website, ask her to share it with the item and the patch.
Okay.
She reaches out to the media every day.
Okay, fine, will do.
Yeah, it just saves you a lot of time and hassle.
Yeah, and it comes from official channels.
Yeah.
And then just speaking on both school buildings, kind of the stance from the utility is to make the buildings electric from a heating and cooling, from whether it's air source, heat pump, or ground. And as we work on making our portfolio net zero emissions, kind of by de facto, all of the buildings in town become net zero ready, because as we work on the utility side, as we change our generation portfolio, the buildings follow along with the electrical generation as well. So kind of the theme is to make it electric, and now it's kind of net zero emissions ready, which is where we'd like the buildings to be at, and then the utility will take it kind of from there in that aspect.
Tom, in terms of the design on the high school, our Wakefield High School building, I know there was what felt like a very productive meeting at the end of calendar year 2021 with the utility present, where it was pretty clear that the direction was headed toward all electric. I believe that was their words. And then I attended one of the community meetings after that, and I'm not sure it was at that level of detail. Although I think that, they certainly use the words of the language of sustainability, and they seem to have a pretty robust sustainability team on the design. But do you have a sense of, first of all, has the communication remained open, or is there an opportunity to enhance that?
So the planners reached out, myself and I believe Robin, there was a sustainability, a follow-up meeting last week. They are definitely looking, designing around air source heat pump. It was brought up to look at geothermal. There was some discussion around that. They're going to provide, kind of a cost analysis around that. Unfortunately, with the geothermal, there is quite a bit of capital expense upfront, even before a design for geothermal is done, because they have to drill some test wells to see even if the site is feasible. I personally did ask the question, is there any geological studies or anything that would indicate that the site is even possible before you even do test drilling? Because I know that that site has a lot of shale and hardstone, and someone had brought up, I think it's Winchester that does, their school is doing geothermal, and they have shallow wells, which are about 500 feet. I suspect we would have to go much further, so there could be quite a bit of capital expense, but they'll provide cost analysis of the kind of paybacks. But their modeling, they were saying that, the geothermal payback could be measured in decades, versus the air source heat pumps are going to be a much faster payout on that payoff from, even just consumption, not even just the environmental aspects. So they are, definitely looking at that. They're, all of their HVAC systems, they're looking at highly efficient, and also in the, kind of water for the building as well. And unfortunately, I had to drop off at kind of as they were moving into more of the mechanical systems of the, water distribution and water savings.
Great, thank you.
And there'll be another third meeting for that as well. So they are very focused on it.
Great. And the utility was included as well, in addition to yourself and.
So the utility was invited. Unfortunately, the utility was unable to attend that meeting, but they are on the invite, and they are welcome participants. And again, was reinforced just to, as the planning is done, to make sure that the utility is included with that.
Great.
So Tom and Maya, one of the things that I've been thinking about, there's always budget constraints in anything like this. And one of the ways to kind of address it is to, in the design, if they can't do what we ultimately want the buildings to be as far as sustainable is concerned, right up front, at least prep the buildings so that it could be done at a later date. And the savings that you can do, say, for instance, for the air heat pump, maybe can be used to start doing the geothermal and then switch over at a later date. That also goes with water conservations and even energy conversations in the building itself. So, for instance, I know Honeywell has systems that really take a look at energy usage room by room, hour by hour, and then modify the energy distribution and so forth and so on. And again, these things are expensive, but maybe we could suggest to the design people that say, hey, these are some things that could be done in the future. Let's not do things that would preclude those things being done in the future.
We totally agree, and it's actually a great segue. We're going to touch on that theme, I think, when we get to item 5 of our agenda too. That same idea, but I think it's great. Robin, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was actually just going to say that the easy example of that is, putting something on a roof, that you prepare to have a roof designed by weight and have electrical space available for conduits for future solar, photovoltaic or anything else, but that it may not be part of this project. Dan, I totally support your idea. One thing to keep in mind is if this budget doesn't allow it, then we have to advocate for all future budgets to be planning for it, because this kind of funding does not come, easily in the future. The MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, does not have other grants that allow you to do smaller projects to make those upgrades later. So it's really, as taxpayers, to ask the town to be thinking about it, for other type of operational changes. So, that advocate strongest now is going to be easier than later for someone to think about, other changes potentially. I mean, it's kind of a huge topic, so it could vary, but just to keep that in mind.
So first of all, I apologize to our public participants. I feel like this was a little bit of we were in the middle of this conversation last time. Clearly, I think what we're talking about is really trying to get ahead of the designs of these large buildings that our community will be living with for the next 50 years or more. And so really trying to build in as much sustainability into these building designs as we can. So all of you who have been involved, is there anything that we really should be keeping our eyes on? Or I know that the group is sort of outside of this committee, but is meeting to think about the vocational high school. But is there anything else sort of coming up that we need to be paying attention to, or that we should be communicating, or are there more meetings? What's the status there, and where's the opportunity for broader participation?
I encourage everyone to go to community meetings that they are hosting, and to then speak at those community meetings on your priorities, and make sure that the goals of the project meet what your interests are.
And I would dovetail that with, make sure that you are showing the support. I think it's important that you voice your support for things and not just assume that, if your silence or whatever is just kind of giving the nod towards your support. It is important to be vocal in support of something, just as it is important to be vocal if there is opposition to something as well. So having both sides are important for our, the folks designing this and public officials. One thing I did forget to mention that to Dan's point, and it was going to be kind of part of my update, is that the new, kind of 2022 energy stretch code is coming out, and it's, very much focused in net zero emissions, some of the other stuff, the EV readiness and solar readiness. The sustainability planners for the Wakefield High School are actually going to, they have some of the draft code, and they're going to be planning around that because they anticipate that this code will be in place when they actually go to for approval. And so they're ahead of that, which I think is fantastic that they're looking forward to those stretch codes as well.
And I don't know if anybody knows this, maybe Robin or Julie, but does the vocational high school as a building in Wakefield, is it subjected to the stretch code that we have now adopted?
Yep. So it's a property in Wakefield. They will get a building permit from Wakefield. Therefore, they fall under our requirements.
Great.
And I don't know, and this may be a question for Julie and Green Communities, if the new amendments for the 2022, when they are finalized, if we need to also put that in to bring our code up to the new code, or if it just automatically.
I think it automatically updates. Jen, do you know from all your Green Communities work?
What do you mean by amendments specifically?
So there's, yeah, go ahead, Tom, you know more about it.
So there's a bunch of new stretch code coming that potentially includes EV readiness, PV readiness, demand response capabilities, and then the new, which I think we would have to adopt subsequently, is also the net zero energy readiness, which is under legislative process. But they are changing the stretch code to make it more stretchy. lack of a better term. So I don't know if our existing one that we just voted in.
My understanding, now it's coming back to me, when our advisor from Department of Energy Resources told us that as stretch codes change or get more stringent, we just get grandfathered into them.
Okay, so they would have to, whatever proposed change.
Because I remember, yeah, we don't have to take anything back to town meeting. It just becomes, you know, because I remember him saying that, you know, there are people who have gotten in and think it has changed and they've never gotten out of it.
Yep, so
You can
that
always go
is
back and
very,
get rid of the stretch code, but you get grandfathered into the new ones.
yep, that's my understanding too. I just want to make the distinction that the net zero energy code, I believe, is different and requires a separate vote of adoption.
Correct. That I knew we would have
That's
to.
an opt-in.
Yep.
But it's good to hear that they're planning towards the more stringent stretch code.
Correct.
Great. Thank you all. Item 5 on the agenda is the idea of a town meeting warrant and potentially a potential ESC sponsorship of a code change, a proposed code change for town meeting. So I'm going to, Tom, you are a co-host if you want to show something. I would like to grant Jen Calais permission to talk at will. I know you have a lot to say about this, as long as there's no objection from the committee members.
No objection for me.
So Tom, do you want to show something?
Doing that right now.
And just so everyone knows, at the end of this, I think we're going to have a vote as to whether we think ESC is appropriate to bring this forward to town meeting. There's a process for sponsoring bylaw changes or zoning changes through a town committee, of which we are. And so I think that really is the question that we're going. And then if we do decide that ESC is appropriate to sponsor this, then at the next meeting, we'll be reviewing the actual language of the bylaw change or the coding change that's being proposed. Did I get that right? Tom and
Yes.
Julie.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure technically we need a vote today, but it wouldn't be a bad thing. It's just, you know, we don't want to work on something that we don't think that eventually it has a good chance of being sponsored by this committee. So yeah, it's great.
So I'll back up just a little bit. So the ask will be for actually two separate warrants. One for EV readiness, so electric vehicle and electric vehicle service equipment readiness code. And then the second one would be PV or solar ready code as well. And so those are the two warrant articles that we are bringing forth to ask this body sponsor for town meeting. Gas and Light just had a strategic planning meeting at the end of January, and out of that meeting kind of came out of this concept of having the ESC bring forth the code changes like we did for the green communities, the stretch code, the plastic ban, and styrofoam ban as well. The utility will work on the policy of once an entity, whether that is a single residence or multifamily or commercial business, comes forward and says, we want to put in these things, then the utility policies will take over from there. But this is the code for developers when developing new properties in town to put these readiness codes into place. The utility historically in the past couple of years has asked various developers in town as they're doing large developments to put solar and also make ready and install EV charging equipment. And the utility has gotten a lot of resistance from the builders and developers. And most of the response from the developers is, I'm not doing it. It's not part of code. When it's part of code, we'll go forth and do it then. So hence where we're at today. For the EV readiness code, which everyone can see my screen here.
Yep.
We would like to model off of Boston's policy for the town of Wakefield. And Boston's policy, and we'll change this around to make it fit Wakefield's, but hopefully everyone's had a chance to kind of review it. At the high level, the policy says if you're developing, your parking lot, your building is X square footage, it is based on a point system. So those points, whatever your development is, you have to score so many points. And either install EVSE, which is the charging equipment, and make ready so many spots based on the points. One of the things that I like and find interesting, points are not just given to, for, you can see kind of the point scoring here in the table. For just having charging equipment, there's two parts that I find interesting, is an EV car share. So think Zipcar, but with an electric vehicle that has a dedicated charger. So that charger does not count towards the points so you can't double count it. And then also electric bike parking. We know that there's a lot of large developments coming in town that are transit centric. So having a EV car share really does help those residents that are renting or purchasing in those developments that are close to public transit, also have the option of not owning a car, but having access to a car that is also EV. So I think it dovetails in well. Any questions on kind of the EV ready code or comments?
And at this time, you're only asking for new development, right? That it wouldn't extend to significant renovation or renovation of an existing space?
Correct. So this policy is only for new development. We kind of kicked around the significant renovation, and the thought process was to only do new development, but open for suggestion, dialogue. If anyone potentially wants to has comment on that.
And is there a unit minimum? I mean, are we talking about a new single family home or duplex, or are we talking, I mean, clearly we're talking about the larger ones that are in the pipeline.
So this policy does not necessarily cover single family. It is based both on unit number and square footage. There are some threshold requirements. They're spelled out fairly succinctly in this policy around when this policy would kick in. Certainly open to stating that all new all new building construction, whether it's single family or multi, be made at least EV ready, which could just be simply that there is a 20 amp plug, so your normal plug in a wall, be located close to parking, whether that is in, if there's a garage or, driveway for single homes. So we can, mold this to how we see fit for Wakefield.
Does this apply to commercial as well?
Yes, this definitely does apply to commercial. I've read other policies like this from other states, other entities. Getting back to Robin's point of renovation, it's not necessarily a renovation of structure. Some of the policies have, any significant renovation for commercial or business parking lots that are over X size. If you do, any major renovation, so one of the policies was anything that was 0.25% of the parking lot being changed. So if you're repaving the parking lot, that would initiate the policy to at least make that lot EV ready, and even potentially installing EVSE as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that we would go for, residential, commercial, as much as we can in this code.
So Tom, I've actually never read the Boston one, but just quickly glancing at it, I do see that there's a lot of reference to the trigger of the Article 80,
Yeah.
which is a unique Boston trigger, and it is kind of a large project. So how to scale that to something that Wakefield projects trigger it enough, because we just don't have developments as big. So I'm not saying you have to give me an answer on size, but just a thought on.
Yeah.
And
So,
maybe this is a conversation with the, town planners, is like, what are the types of size developments we could see? And then, making sure that you draw the line to make sure that they are captured in that kind of thing.
absolutely. And that is one of, while the Boston policy, has a lot of good things in it from a trigger standpoint, we need to actually kind of work the logistics on that, because this policy is triggered, as with Article 80 and TAPA, which we as Wakefields don't have. So we need to, put the language in here that would trigger that.
Yeah, this is Jen Calais. I mean, I agree that customization is needed. Additionally, it makes sense to note that typically in larger communities or communities with investor-owned utilities, a multifamily is a 4+ unit, but in Wakefield, it is anything greater than 1. So we do have a different definition of multifamily in this town as well.
Excellent point.
So we are open to suggestion. Jen Calais and Julie and myself have kind of taken the torch to, at least take these and mold them into Wakefield with, having the open dialogue to anyone. So if there's anyone else that would like to participate or just have commentary, what they would like to see, we're open to suggestion and comments and things. And to Dan's point, I really, the ready codes are impactful because it is far cheaper, and there are many studies out there that can be referenced to make ready a site during initial construction or even major renovation than it is to do after the fact, and retrofitting these things in becomes much more difficult. From an equity standpoint, it is also a lot harder from a condo or apartment for folks that want to, move from a traditional ICE vehicle to an EV vehicle. Access to charging can become much more difficult when we are talking about multifamily type structures. So having these things put in during development and just having them there, then trying to retrofit them in, and then having to work through HOAs or management companies to do that, it becomes a issue of access and equity. It is certainly much easier for a person who owns a single family home to retrofit their home to do this than versus someone that has to deal with a multifamily.
But even that, I mean, single families, it was not inexpensive when we went through this ourselves. We had to like upgrade the panel, and I mean, even though, I guess one of my questions is, and I think that this is tied to the car, but like when we got an electric car, the utility gave us the charger unit. So I assume that that's not sort of part of this deal, that the utility is not going to be on the hook for providing chargers to all this, to the new development.
Correct. That would fall under the utility policies in terms of, whatever program is running. This is the make ready. So to your point of, you had to upgrade your panel. Well, with the EV ready code, the panel has to, at the time of construction, the load has to be calculated and space within the panel reserved, the conduit, the wiring, all of that marked as EV ready has to be reserved for that. So there is clear language in the Boston policy around all that. So to make sure that when someone does want to install the equipment, it's very it's fairly frictionless from is triggers at certain size that you actually have to install the EVSE for so many spots. So, 2 spots might have a charger or would be required to have a charger, and then 10 spots are made ready. So all of the, infrastructure is in place to easily install the following equipment. And this policy, spells out triggers of when those things need to be, mandatory to be done if isn't done on their own.
And then what's the timeline you all have in mind? I think all of us are like, we know there's some big buildings coming, and I think we were talking about town meeting in April or May. So when's the implementation timeline proposed?
So I would like to see the warrant article go in, as soon as possible for this code to be implemented. I would think that the latest date would be January 1st, 2023, but potentially even earlier if we can. Maybe even if town meeting, even July 1st.
Yeah, I think we just have to talk with our building inspector to see what's doable on his part, what he has to get set up for. But I've spoken with him, and he is very open to going through all of this with us. He's very amenable to this.
So would this apply to anything that's under construction during the, what would the timeline be for this being applied?
So this would technically, from the letter of the law, when a new code goes into place, anything that already has a building permit would be grandfathered outside of this. So any new building permit pulled after the date of implementation would fall under the code.
But the nice thing is that if we know this is coming and it has support, ZBA can start asking for things like this.
Yeah.
To Myra, to your point, like this page kind of shows, what the requirements are, and the make ready part.
Do you want to talk about the solar ready too, and then we can vote on both of them?
Stop share.
Yeah.
And bring up
While you're doing that, Tom, too, I'll just say, I just got the schedule for town meeting that we're voting on Monday night. So town meeting is proposed to be April 30th, Saturday, April 30th at 8 a.m. at Galvin Middle School. We'll open the annual town meeting warrant on Monday night, meaning that any town body or any citizen can start to propose warrants for that meeting, and we will close the warrant on March 31st. So if we're going to do something, we kind of need to, give the sense that we're interested in this, and then at the March meeting, vote on the actual policy, much like we did with the styrofoam policy.
And that was another to-do item for all of us, right, Julie? Right? All of us need to put April 30th on our calendars now.
Yes, April 30th.
Plan to go to
8 a.m. Bring coffee. Actually, they probably wouldn't even let you in with coffee into that building, but
you can bring kids. Our kids have done it a good number of times.
So have ours. The second one would be the solar or PV ready. Same concept. This is Watertown's code. So theirs is 10,000 or square foot or 10 or more residential units. I personally would like to see the threshold of 10 move down to less, to 4, but I am open to suggestions, thoughts around that as well, because that helps capture some of the smaller townhouses, condos that do go up. This would be for any new construction, again, both residential and commercial. And, you know, there are exemption, you know, they've thought about exemptions for buildings that are, you know, not, they called it a solar zone. So if the building is not situated correctly to capture the sun, or there's shading or any of the things that would, you know, make solar not feasible for that building, you know, they have exemptions. And another thing that they also called out was, this is more around the ZBA permanent building, so that there are certain height restrictions of stuff on top of roofs and things, and the solar would not count against the height of the building. So things that are currently exempted, at least in Watertown, is like the elevator shaft that, you know, sticks up on the top. So if a solar array, you know, if a building was just at its height restriction at the top of that, the solar array would not push the building over. And the thought process is that, you know, we want to encourage solar arrays, and that would be a penalty against that. So this would be the second warrant article.
So is Watertown actually in effect? I mean, it says hearing and stuff like that. Is this implemented?
Yeah, so they implemented this.
I mean, what you're showing is the ZBA or
Yeah, the
planning supporting.
ZBA, correct. Yeah, and Jen brought this forth to us.
Yep, it's my understanding they adopted it.
Awesome.
So-
I think it's great. It's just a question of the thresholds that are kind of appropriate to our size of town, because Watertown, you know, has different kind of housing stock and other development project sizes.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it would make it easier if the thresholds were the same between the two policies. I don't know. Yeah, something to consider.
So Tom, I don't want to take up any time in this meeting, but I've had some experience with solar energy. I actually had a company in the past. And when it comes to solar energy, part of the problem is, you know, during the winter time is the thermal difference between the environment and what's going on within the house and so forth and so on. One of the things that I think we might want to consider, and when we talk about air, heat pumps and stuff like that, during the summer, if you have solar panels on the roof, it actually captures the energy before it gets into the building. And if you actually have that power, the air heat pumps, you get kind of a dual savings on that. So it's just something to think about, and I'll talk to you about that maybe offline a little bit later.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm very familiar with that. You know, I have panels on my roof, and you know, there is that insulating factor that the sun isn't beating on the roof and then heating up the attic. I actually have temperature sensors, and that, you know, I have historical data from before my panels went up and after that show a clear decrease in temperature after the panels went up. So this policy in itself wouldn't force solar onto buildings. This would make the building solar ready. So again, this would be conduit and all of the, you know, panel reservation, panel, you know, electrical panel load to accommodate solar. We certainly could look at requiring larger commercial type buildings is where I think it would potentially start, you know, installing solar on, you know, parking lots, parking garages, you know, large roofs as well. That could also be a follow-on to this as well.
I think that's definitely a key consideration for this body. I mean, at this point in time, I think people are moving from the ready to the capable type code updates, and that actually means saying, you know, as it does here, that if economic, that 50% of the roof space would be developed or developed immediately, you know, during the construction. So that's definitely something to consider, is whether that should be part of this or whether you're simply saying it needs to be ready, but there needs to be, you know, but not actually having it be implemented at this point in time.
So I'll throw that question out to this body. Do we want to focus on ready, or have, you know, or also include capable with, you know, certain thresholds and metrics that you have to, you know, actually at time of development add solar?
How would the utility, I guess, would it change? Can the utility absorb that if we said that?
Absorb in
That much solar? I don't know how much it would be, but
Yes.
I think we'd have to engage them on that, but I
okay.
don't know in term, you know, if it's being developed. I'll go out on a limb and say I don't know that it would be a problem.
Okay.
But I'm not the expert in, you know, obviously the infrastructure, and that's their part of the business.
Do you mean from a systems perspective or from a cost perspective?
I think from a systems perspective, I mean, it was 2 years ago that we were sitting in utility meetings and they were saying, you know, if you have too many people in one neighborhood do it, you know, it's doomsday. Has that much changed?
No, and so they are currently planning for electrification, you know, significant increases in electricity usage with electrification, and their planning standards have gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years to make sure that all of the distribution system can tolerate exactly what we know is coming.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah. And we are, you know, one of the things that has been communicated to us is that, you know, we as a utility are better situated than most in terms of the distribution system. Those standards have been greatly increased from the circuits, the secondary. So a lot of the work that they've been doing for the past couple of years have greatly improved that resiliency and, you know, load capability. There's certainly, you know.
Yeah. So my other question is, how does our net metering, like, are our rates competitive with IOUs? I mean, is the structure similar? So I mean, there's you know, physically can you do it, but is, you know, some homeowners or some developers might want to wait for incentives that may be coming, or just, you know, looking at what the net metering structure is.
So I mean, at this point, you know, with this, the policies that, you know, the gas and light board and the utility would be, you know, right now is what the bidirectional live policy. Those were things we'd have to work on and consider if the, you know, things dramatically change in that aspect. But, you know, if this was to go into effect today, all of the new solar that would come online would fall under the policies that exist today, which is the net metering. And if, you know, someone is putting solar on and it falls under the current incentive and rebate program, I don't know why they wouldn't qualify for that.
Okay. Okay.
And there are, you know, limits on the size of the systems as well.
I have one question that may be off base, since we all know I'm no expert. But I'm thinking about sort of, our committee is also supposed to be a bit of a steward of our municipal vulnerability plan. And I'm just wondering whether this in any way conflicts with the efforts to encourage new development to be aligned with I'm just thinking about the stuff that might go on the roof. Like, for example, if we're planning for flooding, we're thinking about those kinds of things with climate change. Is there any potential that we're sort of conflicting with where the MVP may be going?
Myra, the only thing that comes to mind kind of off the top of my head is if you put PV, you wouldn't do a green roof, a planted roof. And the benefits of planted roof, there's a bunch, but one is that its ability to absorb water and it slows down water entering, the stormwater system. So, none of these are saying 100% coverage. So we wouldn't be eliminating the potential for someone to plant a roof, but sometimes the two can be in conflict. But some developments, you could use solar ready, correct me, you guys, if you're wrong, that if it's in a parking lot, it's covered parking, and it shades over cars, and therefore it might not be the same.
Yeah, and there's also instances of solar and the green roofs being incorporated together as well.
I like that idea.
To your point, the requirement is not the 100% of the roof coverage. So, they could be side by side in that aspect. Nothing comes to the top of my head that might be in conflict. In some aspects, having the ready code, may give pause or have developers look elsewhere. I don't know, if that would be the case or not. But at least as these new developments are coming online, they're can be ready or capable depending on what directionality we want to go in.
Well, and
I'm
I
assuming
don't think
Myra-
there's harm in having Wakefield be a leader in this, even if it does mean developers take a closer look. I think we want developers to be taking a close look. That we don't want to always be the first that they look at.
Myra, were you thinking about the HVAC systems going on roofs instead of in basements as far as vulnerability? Yeah. So I guess that would be, a question of whether we could do solar and that as well.
You can, because equipment doesn't have to go on the roof entirely. So there's other ways to get it out of a floodplain and not limit the solar. Solar can also go on the sides of a wall and it doesn't have to be flat. So I mean, there's lots of surface areas that you could be talking about things, and equipment coexist with it.
Yeah, I think we should not just be solar ready, but have installation be a requirement. And it seems like that's what Watertown did, is that the paragraph that we're looking at right now.
All right, so I think I want to be cognizant of time. And so I think if there's no more discussion, and I know I'm not allowed to make a motion, but I think what we're talking about is, does this seem to align with the ESC priorities and where we feel like our role is in town to sponsor a forthcoming a warrant at town meeting? So is that, am I hearing that right?
Yeah, the 2 warrant articles.
Yes. And I think what I also heard is if we vote, I think we should vote, and then if we vote favorably, that those of you working on it think about solar readiness, and then the next step potentially, for some buildings. But I feel like it's also, that's potentially a conversation with the building inspector and people who know far more than me.
And maybe it makes it, if it is a favorable vote, to form a subcommittee as well through the ESC, and include public into that as well.
I think we would invite the building inspector to come in March when we actually we look at the language to see whether this is a warrant we want to put. We can invite him and he can help us talk through it too.
Watertown did this as a zoning, I assume that's how ours would go under. So I think we actually need to make sure we reach out to the zoning Board of Appeals for their participation, because it would directly influence,
legal counsel as well.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
There's a lot to do by the next meeting. So I think that's why we just want to make sure that if this body thinks that this is something to pursue, then we'll put the time in and we'll try to have it ready for town meeting in the spring.
I think it
Okay.
is.
All right, should we vote? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Motion for the ESC to work on the 2 town meeting warrant articles, one being EV ready policy and the second being PV ready policy as well.
I second that.
Great. I'm going to do a roll call based on my screen. So Dan, you're up first.
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and Melissa,
Yes.
and I'm also yes. So that's a unanimous approval. We're in.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your time.
Is there anyone else on the committee who would like to join Jen and Julie and Tom putting in some thought to this? Dan, did I hear it? I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, you can put me in.
And if anyone doesn't formally want to be, feel free to email us any thoughts or comments or things that you would like to see.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that work. It's really exciting and it seems like personally such a no-brainer. So thanks for bringing it forward. All right, I think we're at the part of our agenda, we're going to do some quick updates. Jen and Julie, do you want to start on green communities?
I'm gonna punt directly to Jennifer.
Sure. We had a bit of a hiatus in January with the attack of COVID and the great workforce migration that's underway right now in 2022. But Kara and I are meeting tomorrow actually to get this going again. And the big thing right now is confirming with the Department of Energy Resources how they need to receive all of the documentation associated with the audits that have gone on in 17 buildings across town. It's a lot of material, and the big question is, do they need a report built around it, or are they willing to take kind of detailed spreadsheet calculations, or what? Once we get an answer to that question, we can move forward with our application. The really, 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 really great news is that we just heard from DOER that they've changed their application cycle. And now they're, rather than accepting them on, I think it was like an annual basis or maybe even biannual, they're accepting them on a rolling basis. So as soon as we're ready to submit, they'll be ready to receive it and we can get going immediately after our submittal. So really it's just a matter of ironing out that last detail and then putting our application together.
Great, that's great news.
Jen, who was the woman you referenced? Is that a member of the Gas and Light or was that someone else?
I'm sorry about that. It's Kara Goodman, and she is, so we have a grant through the Massachusetts Area Planning Council to receive assistance from them, and Kara is our representative in assembling our application to this program. So she's taking the lead on it with support from a number of people across the community.
Oh, it's like,
So what's our goal for submitting, you think, Jen?
So we need to assemble the application and a lot of the kind of tables in it. So the big thing is what kind of reporting we need. If the reporting that GDS, so they're the firm that did the audits for us, if the reporting that GDS supplied is sufficient, I would think that we can prepare the report in about a month's time period. We need to get another presentation in front of town council and the school committee with the results and the strategies that we recommend they consider, get their feedback incorporated into that application. So I think we are looking at, honestly, I think we're looking at April, and that we might do some presentations for the town end of May, middle of April, that kind of thing. Or sorry, end of March, middle of April.
Okay. Okay.
And I hope to kind of confirm that in the next week or two.
So we could potentially see some grant funding for green communities this year then, if we get approval.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would think it'd definitely be within this year.
Okay, good.
And what's the, so I have two questions. One is, what did those 17 buildings show? I'm just curious. But also, what's the process for thinking about it? Presumably the grant funding goes to something tied to implementation of the reduction plan. But what's the process for thinking through what those projects are? Maybe I shouldn't make that assumption. Is there a process for thinking through what the grant funding will go to?
Good question. We've identified the opportunity at this point, but we haven't really prioritized it. So part of putting the application together is prioritizing it a little bit. In other words, saying what might happen so we have 5 years to achieve the goals. So it's kind of saying what are the near-term priorities and what will take a longer time to achieve, or might be a longer term, effort. And we need to align it as well with the capital planning cycle for buildings. So, if we're not going to touch a building for 3 years, we want to align it, say we're going to do work on it in 2024, we want to kind of align our plans with that cycle as well. So that is to say, it hasn't been decided yet, but it needs to be. That's kind of the process of putting the application together, is considering just that.
Maybe Jen, you could, and Myra, I'm sorry. I mean, we gave a presentation on this to the school committee and the town council. It might be interesting to give it to this group at some point too, what the audits show. And then as we're getting closer to what the funding will be for a future meeting, Myra.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the other thing we're trying to do is figure out how the high school project fits into this whole thing. It's a really big building and it has a lot of energy use. And so and it likely will occur within the time period of the 5 years. So that's what we're trying to figure out as well.
Great, that's very exciting. Thank you, Jen, for all your work on that. It seems like forever ago that we were at town meeting. And so I know you all have done a ton of work to get to where we are. So it's really awesome.
We're getting there. Thank you.
Plastic and styrofoam bylaws. This is still on, I know we're in implementation phase. I don't know if Melissa or Julie, you have anything you want to share about it.
Melissa, I realized I should have coordinated with you. Go ahead.
No, I don't have anything. The last thing I heard from you was that you were working with Steve on public viewing of the waivers.
I have, against much pushback, I have convinced the town to publish who is being granted waivers.
Nice.
So in fact, today a notice went out to all businesses telling them they had to get their waivers in. So they wanted to kind of start fresh. There were a few people who had waivers, I think, who went through the end of January. So they are putting all the waivers together and they are going to put them on a website. And I've said, it can be a positive website, because I feel like if you have a waiver, at least you're thinking about this.
Yeah.
And also when we go to a restaurant that is serving styrofoam, we who really care about this, I want to make sure that this being implemented, can go to the website, see if that restaurant has a waiver, and if not, then we can try to remedy that. So that's where it stands right now. I'm hoping that will be live pretty quickly.
Awesome.
And for
I
those
haven't heard anything
public,
back.
Oh,
sorry. I was just going to say, I haven't heard anything back from Aaron on, any type of crowdsourcing for the different containers for businesses to switch to. So I had passed along a couple of grants that she could look at, but I haven't heard anything.
Okay. Yeah, I know, Melissa, we need to follow up on some of that. But I think having this website will be good, not because we want to punish the ones that are, aren't doing it or aren't getting waivers, but like, I also want to celebrate the ones who are doing it. But, I think as we're seeing people out there that are using styrofoam, be nice to know whether they have a waiver or not. And are working towards it. And by the way, the schools have a waiver too, so that's not great. But hopefully by the new year, they won't anymore. So that's about it. And on the waste
I've
reduction.
seen a lot of changes. I mean, I see, you know, many of those restaurants that we've been getting takeout from that would have even a little bit of styrofoam, like the little containers. I've definitely seen some change and some migration away from.
That's good.
styrofoam.
And I have
So
to
it's
say, we
good.
are, although I feel like it has taken a long time for us to get here, you know, almost 6 months, a year of planning. We're still ahead of Melrose. So,
Yes.
which I don't know. I don't know that I always want to compare ourselves to Melrose, but at least we're, you know, I feel like they tend to be a little more progressive than us, but you know, we are definitely out there implementing, and now it's just kind of getting everybody to do it.
And the
And
Shaw's
really, and
bags are
honestly,
gone,
also trying to
Julie.
figure out what is I mean, there's a lot of blaming the supply chain right now, and I don't know, it's hard for us to know whether that's a real deal or not a real deal. So that's another thing we're just trying to figure out.
Every time I mean, I don't go into Shaw's very often, but every time I go in there, I'm just very happy not to see those,
Oh,
you know,
I'm so happy.
125 used plastic bags just pouring out of that place. So I you know, it definitely is not as fast as we wanted, but there has been some change.
Yeah. Yep. Baby steps.
Julie, those who
Yeah.
received waivers, they all had a time limit. It wasn't a forever, right? That they.
Oh, no, it's not a forever.
Excellent.
Really, Melissa was very great in working with them to make sure we designed a form that says, why do you want a waiver? So very specific, not just I can't do it. Like,
Excellent.
I have tried, my vendor can't get it. They think they can get it in this timetable. So we are tracking a lot of data on this. So we're hoping to see trends. So if, you know, a couple of businesses are saying they can't get it, but then other businesses do get it and come off waiver, we're hoping to be able to see kind of where the supply chain, you know, bottlenecks might be. So we're doing a lot of data crunching on this. If any students wants to do any data crunching or anything, I'm sure we could use your help.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
So Dan, I didn't give you a heads up on this, so you can feel free to pass. I put committee branding on here. I didn't know, last time we talked, you were working on a logo, which I know you connected with Jen McDonald about. Is there any update that you want to provide, or would you prefer to wait? You're on mute, Dan.
No, real quick. I was unaware that there was a style guide in Wakefield, and I got that from Jen. It's very clear to me as to what needs to be done, and you know, you can see that in the letter, and other things that have to be done. But I'll coordinate with Jen, and let's just say that the branding is all set.
Great, thank you. If you send it to me when you have it, we'll also put it on our Facebook page and you know, and other places that we have in addition to our website landing page. Or Jen, I guess, has that, but I can do the Facebook if she doesn't want to.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Melissa, waste reduction, is that sort of included in the, I know you've been doing a lot with the schools and thinking about that.
Yeah, so that's I guess more focused on the schools right now, which I've been trying to get in touch with Tim O'Brien, facilities director, and Andy Bray, who I've been working with, and just haven't been able to get everybody together and come up with a game plan for implementation of recycling at the Galvin and composting at the elementary schools. We have all the infrastructure in place, the bins and, you know, the composting materials and everything. It's just a matter of education at this point, and how we can, you know, get the signs and start, you know, getting into the schools and getting all of it going. So I'm just trying to touch base with people on how to do that.
Great, and I connected you with Cheyenne also, who's been doing some work at the Galvin, thinking about starting food rescue at the Galvin. And so I just think we need to coordinate a little bit on that and make sure that we're talking with it. You know, I think there's some common challenges. I, as a parent, have not heard that they've lifted the volunteer ban yet. So there's no volunteers in the school as far as I know. But I don't know if that will
Oh.
change.
I thought that they were allowed. Was that a recent thing?
I could be wrong, and we can circle back with Susie. I haven't heard that they, I mean, we still pick up our kids all the way out of, we are not allowed in the school as far as I know. But that it could be certainly changing as a number of the restrictions are rolled back. Or maybe the Galvin may be different than the elementary schools. I'm not sure.
Yeah, last I heard from Susie, which was a couple months ago, volunteers were allowed, but it could have changed because of Omicron. I don't know.
All right, well, we can certainly circle back and see if there's any guidance on that. But that may be one of the barriers, is the status of community members inside the school. Sean, any update on land use? I know it's been hard to get people together.
Yeah, so Jen mentioned earlier that their group had been on a hiatus. Our group's hiatus is still in process. I haven't been able to connect with Mary, but I just dropped her a note here. I know she hasn't been able to make the last few of these meetings, so not a formal report, but I did have an information item here, and maybe somebody on the call already has more information about this than I do. That's related to the topic of the land use subcommittee. The Wakefield Planning Board put out a legal notice of public hearing on Monday regarding zoning bylaw section 190-31, which says that in no case shall any building or structure be permitted within 50 feet of the embankment of any open stream. And I guess there is at the February 22nd meeting of the planning board, they're going to hear a citizen's petition to revoke that bylaw. So, and I guess something that had come up last year and then was withdrawn somewhere along the way of the process, but apparently there's a landowner in Wakefield who is restricting a building plan that this landowner has, and somehow this was the start of this citizen's petition. So, Julie, maybe you have more information on this. I just saw this on Tuesday's discussion in a social media group. It does seem like is there another way forward for this landowner, and is this something that we should be paying a lot more attention to, because it seems like a very heavy hammer regardless of what should be done with this one property to get rid of this.
Right,
bylaw.
yeah, this is one landowner who bought some land and has had multiple issues, not just this particular one, I believe. And is now trying to get this revoked so he can build on that land. I think it's worth us showing up and saying, just in general, certainly no comment on this particular, we don't want to hurt one single kind of landowner, but it is a pretty heavy hand to lift that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, about a variance for one property versus removing this bylaw, but I would think certainly within the topics that we cover as a committee, the starting point should not be that you can build up against an open stream. The starting point should be that maybe it needs to be a conversation, which seems to be what we have now. So it is Tuesday, February 22nd at 7:45 p.m. It's going to be an online meeting of the public hearing of the planning board. And so the rest of that information would be on the town's website, just like our committee's meetings are. And I don't know if anyone else has anything to say on this, but I just wanted to make sure to raise it at this group. Other than that, though, our subcommittee has not really moved ahead on some of the things I reported on last month, but I'll try to do what I can to see if we can regroup.
Thanks for the heads up. I also read that in on the social media page, and it does seem I will be out of state, but we'll try to go. I don't know if anybody else is able to go or even communicate with the planning board more broadly. I also do think I need to circle back with the planning board because there was a rumor that they also had some zoning proposals to bring to town meeting. And so I just think it's time again to sort of check in with them and
Yeah,
coordinate.
they've been talking about new zoning around the lake. I don't know where that stands right now. It may be tabled until the master plan process is kind of fully implemented.
Yes, and that's actually, thanks for the reminder, Julie. So I am on the master plan advisory board. And we've met once, and I think we're going to meet again in March. And then again, start public meetings. And so we'll make sure that you all know when they are, if you'd like to join in. There will be a series of public meetings, I think, around specific topics, some of which are environmentally focused and some of which are other kinds of topics. But very impressive, those who contributed to the visioning document which was the precursor. There's a lot of real environmental focus in that visioning document that's carrying through. So I think it's great. It's a really diverse, I think I said last month, it's a very interesting and diverse group of community members who are on the board, many of whom I didn't know, which is fun. I think a lot of people who are really new to town who are interested, a lot of people who are more established in town, some business owners. So it's a good group, I think, but I think there'll be a lot of opportunity to chime in. Student Nick, do you want to chime in at all? Uma gave us a little bit of an update when she was here earlier.
I don't have any specific comments on what we're working on right now, but I am happy to see that the plastic bylaws are being put into effect, because I know I helped with the video on that, so that's nice to see. Great.
It was a priceless video. We might before you I know you're a senior, right? So
Yeah, I am a senior, yeah.
So we gotta like seize on you and Sophie and your skills before you go. So we might have to find another excuse. Susie's not here. Public events, that's on me. I haven't yet connected back with the person to do the big recycling event. So I will try again and try to connect with them and just make sure that we're on moving forward on that. So my apologies to all. Town council, Julie.
A couple of things, just kind of piggybacking on the school committee. So we have a town election coming up, and there's I think there's 3 school committee positions open, and I think people have only pulled for 2. So if anybody's interested in serving the community as a school committee member, and then you could be appointed to this committee as a school committee member, kind of a radical way to get on the environmental sustainability, but keep that in mind. The other thing is we do still have a earmark from the state for $50,000 for municipal solar that needs to be installed by the end of June. So we are working on getting that moved forward. It will likely, I think, Ann's probably go on one of the water buildings, similar to where the last array went. We are voting on the town council budget on Monday, and included in that is $1,000 for this committee. We weren't able to use the $1,000 that we were appropriated last year, but I'm really hoping that we can use it this year. And Melissa, I'm kind of thinking, I think the original justification for getting a little bit of funding in the town budget was to help demonstrate low waste events. So like events around the lake and helping make those more zero waste. So just keep that in mind as we're planning things and as public events are starting up again. So we could use that funding for that.
I didn't even know we had $1,000, Julie.
Yes, I know.
Has it already expired?
No, we can still use it from last year.
And I'm wondering whether,
I'm thinking around 1st is the beginning of a new fiscal year.
Is June 1st, July 1st?
June 31st, I think it is the end.
June 30th.
June 30th.
Yeah.
No, 30th, yeah.
I mean, we should talk about this at our next meeting. I'm wondering also sort of in terms of signage and outdoor space and whether there might be a sort of low hanging fruit that we could think about
Yep, we can
Yeah.
definitely do that.
I
We can
mean-
definitely do that. Or as we're thinking through the events, things like that. I
Myra,
do
One
think,
out trail that's really irks me every time I think about it.
yeah. Yeah, I
Myra,
know the
just even-
original
oh.
idea was to kind of set up those kind of barrels at events and do the
Yeah, I love it.
real-time sorting at events. Like
Love it.
Festival by the Lake is coming up. That might be one that we
Great.
want to plan for. And that actually might be before the end of the fiscal year. They were open to it before the world went crazy. They were open to it, to working with us on making that kind of a demonstration zero waste. Our whole plan before COVID had been to kind of spend a year demonstrating that zero waste is possible at public events, and then move towards more of a kind of a bylaw that as people have big events. Now we have limited big events on the lake, to just not have as many of them, but still we should show people how to do it zero waste or low waste. I think that's it. There is a Safe Streets Working Group, which is the group that kind of works around transit issues. I see on social media, it looks like there was a bike accident today around the lake, which is devastating to me. We had a pedestrian accident here in Greenwood. So the Safe Streets Working Group is really kicking things up. We've been meeting, we met with the town engineering group to try to come up with some redesigns for the 5-way stop sign in Greenwood. We have a whole list of intersections and crosswalks that we're trying to improve. So that's an ad hoc group. That's not a town group. That's not a voting group. That's just invited. Anybody can come and help out. And so if anybody wants information on that, can reach out to me. And there is now a Facebook page on that as well. Safe Streets Working Group. I think it's Safe Streets Wakefield. They meet the fourth Wednesdays of the month. They're meeting on February 23rd.
Great, thank you. Tom, any other updates?
Two quick updates. The first one is the utility had applied for, and so on February 3rd, the Baker administration, in conjunction with the Mass DEP, awarded $13 million for 150 fast chargers in the state. We were part of that, so we have an award. I don't have the specifics on exactly, is it one, more, and the siting. Again, the DC fast charger is like the one in front of Bank of America, so we're getting at least another one. And so that's great that we were part of that grant award. The second is just kind of a plug for the energy efficiency, that we have both for insulation, air sealing, and heat pumps. I'm sure everyone has noticed that energy prices are dramatically more this year. And a lot of it has to do with natural gas. Natural gas prices are up 30% due to just global market forces, and the constraints that we have here in New England. So just folks can reach out to the utility to have an energy audit to make their homes more efficient, and then moving towards the heat pump. We have the free consultation with a BOD as well, that's tailored to each individual that reaches out for their home as a consult. That was all for my updates.
Great, thank you. And Anne, next time I'm going to shuffle this list, Anne. So, I feel like you
Last
always
one.
last. So next time you're going first, but now you get to go. It's time.
So we have great news. We only have 5 Black Earth bins left. So we've done 195 new customers. We even had sold a few on Christmas Day, which I laughed. It was a great, I didn't buy anything. I got you a nice Black Earth subscription. So that's great. We will talk to them and see where we stand with them, if they'd be willing to get us another deal or what we can do. So that's in the works. Number 2 is we're working on our rain barrel sale for the spring. We did have one in the fall, but we have had so much interest that it's worth having another one. So we'll do one in the spring. And then the last thing I was going to say, if we're planning a purge event and if we want to have the NWA water filling station there, the earlier I can get the date, the easier it is for us to get it. It's very popular now. They have a couple of them, but if we don't plan in advance, then we probably won't get it. So if we have a date, let me know and I will call them and see if we can arrange to have it in.
And can I ask what an MWRA water is? Is it to fill water bottles or?
Yeah, it's awesome. They have two different kinds, but they have one that has a tank and you come and you hook it up and you can fill up, your reusable water bottle. You don't have to have anyone selling water or anything. They can get it that way. And they also have another one that has like a trough. So it has part wash hands, part get a drink, all kinds of things.
Wonder if we could get it for the festival on the lake as kind of the environmental sustainability booth.
Sure. I'll look up the date tomorrow and I'll give them a call.
Okay.
I was going to
That'd
ask,
be cool.
has the town ever explored inviting it to the farmer's market? And
Be great.
Yeah, no one's asked me. You do have to limit how many times you have it, like they're not going to bring it. Joe and I actually look into the cost of what it would cost for our own Wakefield, but maybe out of our reach this year. So
Maybe ARPA money. Go fill out your ARPA survey and say you want a water
yeah,
tank.
Or that could be Green Communities grant money as well.
I love it. I mean, nothing makes me crazier than plastic water bottles. So, but yeah, maybe Festival by the Lake. We should probably reach out to them again and just kind of start up this talking about waste and what we can do.
it's
Great.
June 11th. By the way, it's June 11th.
awesome. Thank you.
And I can send you the date of the recycling event. It's in mid-May.
Perfect.
I also just want to remind people or anybody in the community that there are ESC applications that are due tomorrow. So I have to do mine, for example. But I think really, and I think next month, we'll talk through a little bit about either the specific applications or the skill set that you feel like is really helpful. I think that's what we did last time. And obviously we ended up with 3 amazing people. And so I would encourage you to think about that. Any other matters not anticipated? Oh, first of all, the next meeting, I actually will I maybe, cross your fingers for me, maybe out of the country on March 10th. So it's either we can do it without me and somebody else, since part of the meeting will be discussing applications. Or would anybody object to moving it to the first Thursday of March?
I would have a conflict if it was the first,
Okay.
but not if we changed it to the 3rd of the March, the 3rd Thursday.
Yeah, I'd rather move it later just because we still got to pull this whole EV PV thing together, and the extra week would help us on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Which means it's St. Patrick's Day, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's
that might
green.
get- Wait. I wish we could do this in person. I hope we get back to in-person meetings.
I feel hopeful.
I'm hopeful too.
I will also be out of town on the 17th. But I think we should probably go ahead instead of proposing moving to the 24th.
With the 24th, I mean, just throwing it out there, 24th as well.
The 24th is fine for me. I don't know how it works for others.
Yeah, it's fine by me.
I'd be
Works for me.
available.
And that still gives us time to get things in for warrant. Still gives us a week to get the warrant in if we need to do any last minute tweaking.
Okay.
All right, we can't live without you, Myra. 24th.
All right. Well, it feels impossible at this point to be imagining traveling out of the country, but it seems like it might happen. So any other matters not anticipated? All right, then is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
I second.
So roll call, Dan,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.